for the International Conference on School-Based Assessment, Psychometric Assessment for 21st Century Skills towards Sustainability of Human Capital Development. When we talk about human capital development, it's not something new. It has been there. Very important asset of the country is the wealth of the nation. I'm sure my Malaysian colleagues know what is this about. And if we don't know what is this picture about, I think we are not in the correct country. I mean, you must have forgotten history. Because if you read, I think if I remember, Josh Santaya used to say, if we forget history, are doomed to relive it. And I'm sure our international experts, Mr. Prof. Jim and also Professor Daw also know what is this about. Because like Professor Jim, you have been to Malaysia, I think, more than 50 times. And as we know that Malaysia is currently undergoing a transitional stage that will determine the future of our nation. And as we move toward the status of a developed nation, we want to be a developed nation by the year 2020. That is what we aspire. We need to transform our economy and society so as to be more competitive globally, and our economy, our country economy has transformed from a P economy or from agriculture or mining economy to an industrial economy from 1980 to the year 2000. This picture showed about Malaysia in the 19th century. At that time, it was mining was one of the important industry in Malaysia. And this is KL. Compare KL in the year 2013 and in the 18th century. You can see a vast difference, the development, the rapid development of Malaysia. And this is Kuala Lumpur in the 19th century. Since the mid-1990, the country started experiencing the economic transformation towards the knowledge-based economy driven by knowledge and the advance in information and communication technology. And this is KL today. Wow, we are proud to be Malaysian. The Twin Tower, the mosque, the KL Tower. Now our country is on the world map. However, there are many gaps to be filled when we talk about human capital development. Human capital development is an important investment, and human capital development should begin from primary school and secondary level. Currently, only 23% of our workforce are with the tertiary education qualification. This is very sad. As we compare to other developed nations, I think it's more than 80%. If the human capital has high-level education, our country has the possibility to achieve Vision 2020. And when we talk about the gaps, we are talking about the gaps between the rich and the poor, the gaps between the have and have not, the gaps between the the rural and urban, and between the low achievers and high achievers. And this is some of the place of this transformation accelerated since Y2K. issue when many organizations make significant investment. I remember, just to share a little bit, when we were approaching Y2K, I was in US at that time, schools, I mean, we were really panicked. We doesn't know what is going to happen. And we start, you know, the children there, they start, when you talk about critical thinking, high order thinking, they start already thinking, what should we do? What is going to happen? You know, like, tomorrow is Y2K. Is there going to be darkness or what? Like, we were at the university, we would like, I think a few months, I think half year we will be talking, everybody is talking about Y2K, what is going to happen. You know, so we start engaging when we talk about, you know, high order thinking and so forth. And we make significant investment into the information communication technology. The knowledge-based economy is being driven by ICT with new business models being implemented and at the same time making obsolescence of many existing business models to achieve growth and even to survive, as it is not possible to achieve one without the other. When business playing field shift, whatever can be done will be done by someone and at a faster pace than anyone can anticipate. And if we didn't grab the opportunity, someone else will grab it and will be lagging behind or will be left behind in the race. We as educators need to educate our students. Not only that we need to educate our students, we also need to educate ourselves. And as I'm sure participants in this room, you have done a lot of reading, especially when we talk about the current, what is going on in our school system, the school-based assessment, and also we are now moving towards the psychometric assessment. We need to be at par what is happening around the world. It goes without saying that maintaining our competitive edge at this transitional stage demands new strategies and approaches to democratic governance and human capital development, and the education system, which includes its curriculum and the examination system, play a critical and crucial role in harnessing the human capital development. And a consistent effort must be put in place in developing a world-class talent pool that is absolutely essential in moving the country forward in a knowledge and innovation-driven global economy. The success of our national transformation is largely incumbent upon the ability of our country to produce the kind of human capital needed to confront the challenges of the whole new global world, and it's our role as educators, again the importance of we as educators to produce human capital that can fit into the current phenomenon. So we play a very, as teachers, we play a very critical role in harnessing our human capital development. And this is an interesting, what color is your parachute? The book of color and the book What Color is Your Parachute is a hugely popular career guide that helps people find work that matches their personality, and this book is written by Richard Bolles. The author uses color as a metaphor for unique personality traits that, if we don't take them into account when picking a career, will keep us from finding fulfillment in our work and lives. Our students don't have to wait until they finish high school to realize their career path. Their interest, their psychometric test assessment is a tool to identify students' career interests. This information is very important, and it can be utilized by school counselor and teachers to nurture this interest and simultaneously, and in the capital, human capital development that can fit the 21st century age. Psychometric test is introduced into the assessment system of this country for the first time in 2007, and its role has expanded from measuring aptitude to career guidance purposes. And what are the top needs of employers? The 5 top needs of employers, as you can see from this slide. And here we talk about partnership for 21st century skills, carried out a survey of over 400 employers across the United States. These employers listed skills needed to succeed in the workplace. They are critical thinking and problem solving. And when we talk about critical thinking, if you still remember when we first introduced our new primary school curriculum way back in 1982, we already been discussed about critical thinking. And also information technology application, teamwork or collaboration, creativity or innovation, and diversity. These are the skills need to be taught to our students to survive in this era. Psychometric tests, namely the aptitude test, measure critical thinking and problem solving. It is important to identify students' performance in this skill. And I'm sure you know what is this picture about. When we talk about examination, this is one. Let's go down the memory lane way back in 2200 BC in China. If you Google, you can see about how the examination was conducted. Way back, it is the civil service examinations, and the curriculum was on Confucianism. And it was designed to identify the best potential candidates to serve as administrative officials for the purpose of recruiting them for the state's bureaucracy. And only 300 students could pass the examinations. The exam went on for 3 days, and they have to write essays, 8 essays, and it was a high-stake test, and therefore, when we talk high-stake, there were a lot of what? A lot of cheating. Cheating is not something new. It happened way back in 2200 BC when they conducted the exams on Confucianism. Just to share with you, cheating also it happened in our national exam. Example for primary. Just to give an example for the primary school examination, there are students, we caught them, and from our markers, they are really, really good. When they mark the script, they know whether the students cheat or not. And the latest case, just to share with you, when there are who set for they recite for our Bahasa Melayu exam, and we caught husband and wife cheated. The husband, I think the wife wrote for the husband, but again, our markers, they are very, very good, first class. We caught them. And of course, actions is, we have to take action for this. We don't want this to happen. It's not a very good, because if we are teachers, we allow these things to happen, what kind of value are we inculcating to our students? Very important. And this is, I'm sure most of you knew about this picture about, what is this, a crow? He's trying to get, she must be thirsty. So she said, how am I going to get this? should I throw the stones or should I just break the vase or kick it or what? There's so many things when we talk about thinking out of the box. And the first psychometric test is intelligence test and referred today as the Binet-Simon scale. It became the basis for the intelligence test that is still in use today. Interest in intelligence dates back thousands of years. But it wasn't until psychologist Alfred Binet was commissioned to identify students who needed educational assistance that the first IQ test was born. During the early 1900s, the French government asked psychologist Alfred Binet to help decide which students were mostly likely to experience difficulty in schools. The government had passed laws requiring that all French children attend school. So it was important to find a way to identify children who would need specialized assistance. Faced with this task, Binet and his colleague Theodore Simon began developing a number of questions that focused on things that had not been taught in schools, such as attention, memory, and problem-solving skills. Using these questions, Binet determined which one served as the best predictors of school success. He realized that some children were able to answer more advanced questions than older children were generally able to answer, while other children of the same age were only able to answer questions that younger children could typically answer. Based on this observation, Binet suggested that concept of a mental age or a measure of intelligence based on the average abilities of children of a certain age group. Later, many IQ were developed, namely Stanford-Binet intelligence test, intelligence testing during World War I, and the Wessler intelligence scale. I think before this one, I'm sure some of you have read a book by Stephen Jay Gould, The Mismeasure of Men. I think before they have this intelligence test, how did they measure the intelligence is by using the caliper? And of course, who get the best, the biggest brain is the best. So who get the biggest brain? And who the lowest, the smallest brain? If you read that book, was I think the African, if I'm not mistaken. I read that book long time, but I still remember. But they use the caliper to measure the brain, and the biggest brain is the so-called the Anglo-Saxon. That's interesting when we talk about intelligence and Stephen Jay Gould, the mismeasure of men. And this is another interesting for us to ponder. This is an example of an IQ test. Wonder, what would be the next sequence? Anybody would like to try? I'm sure you are smarter than me. You know which one is the correct answer. Okay? And this one, and I'm sure, did you know who is this lady? History. Her eyes have captivated the world since she appeared on the magazine cover of National Geographic way back in 1985. What do you think a suitable career for her? Well, if you look at her eyes, what do you think? Is it a model? Or maybe someone who is trying to sell eye product? Yes, you see her eyes, I'm sure the men are captivated. And I'm sure you remember about this photo, right? And for those of you who have not read National Geographic 1985, please Google. After 17 years, a National Geographic photographer is reunited with his most famous subject twice in a lifetime. This is her after 17 years. The photographer went back to Afghanistan and met her and took her photo again after 17 years. Which one is 17 years later? The right or the left? Depends if she do her what? Facelift. Well, she might be the one on my left or the one on your right. And I took her picture again after 17 years. Now she is still in Afghanistan. Her name is Sharbat Gula, a mother of 3 now and a housewife. If Sharbat Gula were to be a citizen, why career would she pursue? Just food for thought for us. You know, I know night session is not interesting for most of us, but this is something that we should ponder. What would be the best profession for her? Psychometric assessment is a component of the new assessment model, and it has a role in the sustainability of the human capital development. The purpose of introducing psychometric tests to the education system is to gather accurate description of an individual. This information can be utilized to make a practical and realistic decision of students' strengths and weaknesses. And this information is also valuable to counselors in order to guide students to achieve their goals. Teachers are also able to use this information to make decisions to improve their instructional strategies and consequently are able to become effective teachers and improving students' learning. Counselors and teachers need to build career knowledge and self-confidence of students. Providing students with a structured knowledge of the world of career is of utmost importance for their future. Students who recognize their personality, values, interests, and achievement by responding to a test or inventory have clear vision of their capabilities and career path. This individual will have high intrinsic motivation to realize their ambition. In addition, students with broad thinking frame are able to think ahead and make viable future career plans based on what they can observe from the psychometric test. The more sophisticated the understanding that a student has of his or her personal career development, the better informed and better prepared he or she is to make educational and occupational decisions. And this will harness on students' intrinsic motivation and individuals who are motivated to improve their capabilities and will sustain their human capital supply. And this is another interesting picture, and Holland states that if a person is satisfied with their working environment, they will be productive employee. Or maybe this particular person, he has been conditioned. Whether he has been conditioned or whether he likes the job or whether he is already in the comfort zone of doing this kind of work. And those who think about a successful and satisfying career need to understand themselves first. Psychometric tests can help individuals understand their preferred activities, work style, learn the best ways of working with others, and manage conflicts. The ultimate benefit to a student completing the test is learning to understand his or career interests. And our government, Ministry of Education, is focusing on creating and maintaining the environment for enterprises to sustain increasing value creation towards the national vision. To do this, the 4 factors of competitiveness, namely economic performance, business efficiency, government efficiency, and infrastructure are being monitored closely and are being benchmarked with the most competitive economies in the world, among others, the US, Australia, and Singapore. In order to be competitive, our government needs to transform, compete, and grow. In this context, the key concern is on the human capital development of this country. As new economy becomes unique and ubiquitous, old jobs disappear through digitization or move away to distant shores. While new jobs are being created, new workforce must be educated. The human capital that we produce must be knowledgeable workers, able to respond to the challenges and opportunities created by globalization, advances in information and communication technology, and rapid technological changes. And according to Peter Drucker, I'm sure you have read most of his books, knowledge workers are those who work primarily requires the use of mental power rather than muscle power. And some people say knowledge is power, or power is knowledge, which is wish, for us to think, for us to ponder also. They will be those who are able to acquire new knowledge and acquire new skills to perform new tasks. This means that it is vital to have multiple skills because business models change, new skill sets are required. We need a workforce with a mindset for learning and willingness to embrace lifelong learning since knowledge tends to become obsolete rapidly. To meet the context of new economy with this, people need to have reading and comprehension skills, mathematics and science knowledge. Our education system must ensure that when students graduate from high schools, they have mastered these basic skills, And problem solving, here we can see the aptitude test assesses high-order thinking skills such as problem solving, mathematical reasoning, scientific reasoning, and reading. The test finds 3 ways to group strawberries to make 7. This test can also be used to predict more global kinds of academic accomplishments such as problem solving and reasoning, and both of these skills are important in order to strive and survive in the first century. And in order for our students to survive in the 21st century, we need to sustain our competitiveness. And I'm sure you know this is what is this about. And research has been done talking about human learning. And research into human learning is providing a view of learning as a continuous, ongoing process that occurs through the lifespan. Learning takes place when individuals see connections they have not previously noticed, recognize observations as specific instances of more general cases, assimilate new information into their store of knowledge, become more skilled with practice, and as they develop deeper understanding of the context to which knowledge and skills can be applied, and learning of this kind generally occurs as a continuous process as mentioned by Masters in the year 2006. At any given age, individuals are likely to be at different stages in their learning and development and to be progressing at different rates. But research suggested that all learners are capable of making further progress given appropriate learning conditions that is challenging and support, and new learning opportunities are likely to be most efficient in promoting further learning if they take account of the learner's present knowledge, skills, and understandings. If they tap into the learner's interests and motivation are consistent with what is known about the learner's preferred styles of learning, and if learning opportunities are provided in a supportive social context, as mentioned by Brantford, Brown, and Cocking in the year 2000. An implication of these research findings for school is that teaching is likely to be most effective if teachers first establish where individuals are in their learning, including their current knowledge, skills, understanding, and belief. And according to Brantford, Brown, and Cocking, there is a good deal of evidence that learning is enhanced when teachers pay attention to the knowledge and belief that learners bring to the learning task, and use this knowledge as a starting point for new instruction and monitor changing conceptions as instruction proceeds. In other words, effective pedagogy includes the ongoing monitoring of where individuals are in their learning and use of this knowledge to decide on starting points for further teaching and learning. Highly effective teaching depends on an understanding of individual learners, including their current knowledge and belief, misconceptions, incomplete understanding, and naive mental models. Psychometric assessment is able to provide this information. Teachers, with the help from school counselors, may use the information from the test to devise appropriate learning activities appropriate to students' characteristics. That is how students typically learn the subject matter. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. This is what Confucius mentioned. And teachers and school counselors can also share maps of student learning continuity in learning. It's facilitated by a shared understanding of a progress of learning in a school subject area across the years of school. An explicit map of learning provides a picture of what it means to make progress along the curriculum, along the continuum of the performance standards. A picture that is more general than and applies across classrooms, teachers, schools, and even school system. A map of this kind, sometimes called a progress map, developmental continuum or proficiency scale, describes and illustrates the nature of progress within an area of learning or development. It illustrates for teachers, students, and parents the typical path of learning or development and provide a frame of reference for monitoring individual progress over an extended period of time, according to Masters and Fosters in 1996 and 1996. Teachers who use developmental continuum, such as the performance standard in their classroom, understand that not all students progress through an area of learning in exactly the same way or the same rate. Students have different interests, motivations, and learning styles, and these differences influence what and how they learn. And this is important for pedagogy in the classroom. And in a nutshell, psychometric assessment cannot be viewed from a narrow perspective, and neither should it be seen as an isolated educational activity. It is an essential element of teaching and learning and contributes towards the effectiveness of any school. Furthermore, it is hoped that the psychometric test will support the development of effective career preparation activities for students and have relevance for the policies that affect such practices. Assessment is an ongoing process and an integral part of the educational experience of each child. School counselors and teachers should work together as a team to provide suitable instruction for different students and advise students on their career path. The result from the psychometric test can be utilized as a tool to create awareness of students on how future career planning can contribute to increase in motivation of students to improve themselves in education. In addition, the information gathered through the test can be used by counselors and teachers to motivate students to learn. The importance of learning in schools depends on an understanding of variation in students' level of development and achievement within the same grade, a willingness to monitor and report individual growth in an area of learning across their years at school, and a commitment to tailoring students' activities to students' interests and level of achievement regardless of their grade. It is through the careful selection of learning experiences for students and decisions about the most appropriate means of monitoring those experiences that progress is maintained. The implementation of a new assessment model with the introduction of psychometric assessment into the system must be viewed from a wider perspective. Its implementation and approaches for human capital development is geared towards achieving our national goal that is transformed, that we want to transform our country into a fully developed nation and high-income nation by the year 2020. Last but not least, please, we hope that on behalf of the Examination Syndicate that you will enjoy this conference, and we have 9 presenters who will be presenting their papers from theory into practice. I would say putting theory into practice in aptitude tests, high-order thinking skills, I think, school-based assessment, and implementing school-based assessment in the classroom. And on that note, I declare open the International Conference on School-Based Assessment, Psychometric Assessment, Assessment of 21st Century Scale for the Sustainability for Human Capital Development. Thank you very much.
Thank you Yang Berbahagia Dr. Naima for officiating the conference and delivering the keynote.